Hey, my beautiful Cancer. Here's your reading for May. I hope you made it through April without too much strife. It was definitely a doozy. Big month for all of us. So let's have a look at what May holds for you and your integration of all of that. And maybe you came through pretty smooth, which is awesome. And we'll pull a shadow card as well to just give us the heads up of what else might be coming to the surface. So shadow work is great because there's always something wanting to come to the surface for the sake of healing. And it doesn't mean we have to be digging all the time. It just means there might be an opportunity in May for a certain part of your shadow to make its way up into your consciousness. And if we're aware of it, we're less likely to avoid and stash it back in our bodies and say, no, I can't deal with that right now. And it's totally fine if you tell your guides, not right now, I don't have the space or the structure or the safety. We love that. But otherwise, the trust is there that if it's meant to come up, it will come up. And if we're prepared for it, just remember that shadow card. And you might even have the intuitive gifts to see that animal when something from your shadow is coming up. So that's how my guides speak to me about it. They show me a picture of a turtle or a lion or a wolf to say, this is that part of your shadow that's coming to the surface that we told you about. So trust us, it's meant to come up and be healed rather than stashed and avoided. Okay, let's have a look for you, Cancer, Sun, Moon, or Rising. The month ahead, we're adding an extra card this month, so I hope that's fun. The extra card is curiosity around your emotions and finding new and interesting ways to register your emotions, maybe label your emotions, to find what might be buried, to understand the complexity of emotions in other people as well. So the pages come in with new information. They are the messengers. And when your emotions are the messenger and we're attuned to when they show up, we can better understand what we're experiencing in the moment. So, for example, if someone comes to see me or I do an online session, where they release emotions tells me about what's buried underneath. It's an indicator for me to pick up. So if they tell me there's no unresolved trauma and that they're totally fine with the way things are happening, but then when they start speaking about a certain issue in their life, they have an emotional release, then I know there's been buried emotions there. And depending on the release will tell me how long and how much of them has been buried. So we need to draw out the thought patterns, the narratives, the stories, the expression that pull those emotions to the surface that say, hang on a second, I'm feeling much more about this than my mind would allow me to. What is under the surface? And I talk about this a lot in a lot of my other work is when something happens in your life, we either have a pretty 3D situation that says, yeah, cause and effect, this happened, that happened, and therefore I feel. But a lot of the times something happens, an event, a friction, a setback, a whatever it is, and we can experience emotions 100 times bigger than the rational understanding of the event. And I call this an iceberg. When we have an iceberg, it doesn't mean that you're too emotional. It means that the situation has far more tendrils than we thought. So it could be relating to an unresolved traumatic part of your past. It could be to do with a past life that you're not aware of. It could be changing ancestral patterns. It could be greatly shifting your timelines and you don't know about it. It could be a deep wounding that you've had buried most of your life and is now ready to come to the surface. The iceberg is not an opportunity to judge and shame yourself and to compare yourself to the way that the other person's going through it. It's actually an opportunity for healing. So it can be like something scratched the surface and underneath is a huge amount of repressed emotion or just a huge amount of emotional data that might be experienced through the body for your guides to signal to you, hey, this is really big. We need to go into this. I want you to open these doors rather than us going, oh no, it's just ridiculous. It was just a little fight I had with my friend and it shouldn't be this big. It doesn't mean that you need to project all of those emotions onto that person. It means for you, for your unique individual journey, there's actually an iceberg of evolutionary golden healing here for you. So pay attention when the icebergs show up and know that take responsibility for how big it is for you and go through it and release that person from needing to understand how big it is for you. That's part of your therapeutic relationship, 3D moving through something work, which is finding understanding, resolve, compromise, and healing for two mutual parties. But if you sit there, and this is why it's all coming through because it's very wordy, Queen of Swords is telling us that there's actually far more information here than we're giving credit to. And if we have to rely on someone else's acknowledgement of that or them understanding how much they hurt you or whatever else, we're not using the Queen of Swords capacity, which is there's an incredible amount of data here for you as an individual. There's healing to be done on many different levels. Don't negate the 3D part because otherwise we spiritually bypass and make it all about the past life and the what's in the chart and what's in the collective and all of that when we don't actually address how we hurt each other. Queen of Swords says, well, we have to address all levels, but then look at the bigger themes, which says, how am I going to reorganize my thought patterns, my belief systems, and my resources around this so I can move through with the integrity and the level of responsibility that I need to still remain in that queen energy. So it's not a lower sword card. It's the Queen of Swords. And she has an art form in the way she processes and understands from her mental plane what is happening around her and within her. So draw out that capacity, Cancer. This is not from the feeling base, although we're going to get more information about your feelings. But if your feelings tell you that there is something far more euphoric here or far more fulfilling here or far more hurtful here, then use that Queen of Swords energy to unpack it. And you might need a therapist, a psychologist, a healer, a good friend, a loved one, a mentor, or a coach. Please grab that because Queen of Swords energy is big. There's a lot of mind chatter. And if there's a lot of mind chatter, we need to compartmentalize and understand, okay, which part of this is a trauma response? Which part of this is my spiritual journey revealing the next stage to me? What part of this is calling me down a path to understand my emotions more? Which part of this is physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, right? When we have an iceberg, I suggest you go after it with as much resources as you have, which is like, yeah, you do need the therapist to help you understand what you're thinking and how that relates to thought patterns in the past and a trauma response and cause and effect. But then you might need someone to understand where the emotions are buried in your body, a body worker or a kinesiologist or someone that's going to work on the body and help you to understand the wiring of it so it can move the emotions through. Acupuncture, something like that. Massage is very good too. But then you might need a spiritual mentor or a healer or a coach or someone to help you understand how is this iceberg changing your timelines and what part of your soul contracts is playing out so we can get more understanding of why the emotions are signaling to you something that's different than what your rational mind can comprehend. Yeah. And if we can use that Queen of Swords energy for all of her capacity, we'll actually get some more information about how this whole situation is making a drain or is providing interesting information about your resources, which means, do we need that missing link? Do we need new constructs, new ideas, new thought patterns around how we build resources for ourselves in a structural, stable, consistent way? And how our emotions can complement that rather than threaten it. So it's like if we do the work here, we'll actually get more information about how to build resources better. So there's something happening that we need to actually pursue. Now, what might seem as a disruption in the path or an inconvenience or a setback of some kind or something that you don't want to feel a lot about, but you are, we actually need to move through it. Queen of Swords needs to get in there and be like, right, what have we got here? Get it all out on butcher's paper, huge big table with whoever is around and say, what have we got here? Why does it feel so big? So that we can understand a better way of providing support, structure, money, time, energy around you, which is what the foundation we actually need for that beautiful emotional intelligence anyway, for that ins and outs and tidal flows of life, which is something that governs you, isn't it? So Cancerians, or if there's Cancer in your chart, you are governed by those cycles, but we need that firm base of earth so that you can explore. Now, if we get a firmer base based on all the work that we've done around the iceberg that we didn't really want to be there, but is, we can make better decisions about the future. Now, decisions based on get me out of this feeling, I hate it, are not great decisions. That's why we need the earth to come through before we make the decisions. So when we have a better structure and support around us, which means we're not in the highly emotional waters, we've used the Queen of Swords to understand, organize the mind around what we're experiencing. And that can be as simple as, right, we have an iceberg here. We need to go into it and understand it. What resources do we have? How do we do it? How many people? Let's create the structure and the support around you that says, okay, we're back to safety now. We're feeling good. We can see a way forward. Now we can make decisions based on what feels right, beneficial, fulfilling for me. Not get me out of this. I'm going to make a decision based on fear, which is a trauma response and a fight and flight mechanism to get me out of the emotional waters because I don't like them and they're not good. And a lot of us do this, right? We go, oh, I don't want to feel this emotion. That didn't mean that much to me, or it doesn't make sense. I just need to get out of this and bury myself in my work or distract myself or talk to everyone about it and hope that they can make the decisions up for me. No, it's really Queen of Swords comes in and says, this is yours. We need to sort this and build a better foundation so that your path becomes clear and you can make a decision based on, okay, I get where that is taking me and I get where that is taking me. And I'm not really sure about my preferred way, but I know that this way will be more fulfilling for me, where I won't need to sacrifice my support system or my structure, and where I can trust my emotions to tell me if it's feeling good at the time. And that's the level of understanding that we need for that sword energy when it's not, it could be indecision, but it's more that if the indecision is there, we probably don't have the structures and the understanding and the safety in our bodies to actually look down each pathway and say, which one is better for me right now? Which is a better use of my resources, which provides safer emotional waters for me right now, knowing that that crab energy will just flourish if it's got those parameters around it. All right. So I hope that makes sense with the iceberg analogy, but if we can go through it, there's a wealth of information there so that your decisions will become very, very clear. Now let's look at the shadow just to be mindful of what might come through for you. Ooh, so good. So number 28 is the praying mantis. Praying mantis actually is a very cool card because it's telling us that there's a timeline trying to get to you that you haven't considered yet, which tells me that you are in a bit of a fight and flight response as should I go left or right? What if there's 20 timelines and all you can think about is, I want to have it all or I can't have anything? This is what we all do. Fight and flight says it's all going to work out or it's all going to turn to shit. And I just need to choose. And the weight of that is incredible. The paradigm or the illusion that there's one right way is just so incredible. It creates so much pressure for so many people. But what praying mantis says, actually, you can sort of have what you want, but you've got to see how many versions of this reality might play out, like choose your own adventure here. What about the timeline where it works out, but just not quite the way that you'd like it to? Or what about the other timeline where it kind of feels like a setback, but you learn so much from it? And what about this timeline where you meet someone along the way that actually solves one of your problems? And what about this timeline that actually represents more abundance in the long term, but in the short term, it's a lot of work? And what about the opposite? The one that's not much work in the beginning, but once you're set on its course, it's a lot of work to get where you want to go. So know that this fight and flight, left or right, blindfolded, if that comes up, take a step back, establish safety, security, support systems that all that earth, look after yourself, build the earth, and then come at it again with praying mantis saying, you can see or create more than what you're giving yourself credit for. So get creative with your timelines. If you can only see 2, I want you to see 4. If you can only see 4, I want you to see 8. If you really want to test your creative capacity, go ahead and write down, visualize, meditate on 20 timelines where it all works out for you. Yeah. And see what comes through. That gives you the idea that you can choose one and say to spirit, I'd really like to embark on this. So I need to align my action, my thought processes, and everything else to do that one, please. So I'm going to go along this timeline. Please organize it for me based on that I've sat down and done all that work. And it's not just about the decision. Most people just want to make the decision because they're uncomfortable in the tension. Sit in the tension a little bit longer. Dream about the timelines that you haven't even thought about yet. And make sure you look after yourself so that those emotions keep telling you things rather than throwing you off course. All right, Cancer, I love you so much. Have a good month. See you next month.